Workplace motorcycle parking in the UK has plenty of room for improvement. MAG's survey of workplace motorcycle parking showed that just under 50% of all workplace parking lots do not have dedicated motorcycle parking bays. The needs and the requirements of the motorcyclist are not necessarily very well understood. We hope this simple guide will give you some tips and advice on how to provide good quality motorcycle parking at the workplace. Motorcycles have a small footprint, and it is possible to squeeze as many as 6 or even 8 motorcycles in one car parking bay. However, we would advise that you resist the temptation to squeeze in too many spaces in a small area. Dimensions should be 1.2 by 2.5 meters. This provides adequate space for riders to mount and dismount without any inconvenience or damage to neighbouring vehicles. The standard car parking bay size is 2.8 by 5 meters, and the bays are generally accessed from the narrow end. Do not make the mistake of assuming that a single car parking bay of this sort accessed from the end will accommodate 4 motorcycles. Motorcycle bays are also accessed from the narrow end, but manoeuvring a motorcycle into a narrow parking bay can be tricky, especially if the rider is trying to reverse into the bay. Motorcycles are not fitted with reverse gears as standard. It is important to allow plenty of manoeuvring space in front of the parking bays so that a rider can swing the motorcycle round in front of the bay and then reverse back into it, or if they're riding straight into the bay, for them to reverse out of the bay without coming into conflict with other vehicles, bollards or anything of that nature. Motorcycles are fitted with side and centre stands for keeping them upright whilst parked. These stands have a very small footprint and can easily sink into loose or soft ground. Gravel or grass is not a good surface for parking motorcycles. Always look to provide good quality solid surfaces for motorcycle parking bays. Please bear in mind that on very hot weather, motorcycle side stands can sink into soft tarmac. The ground should also be level. As we discussed earlier, motorcycles do not have reverse gear. Pushing a motorcycle backwards uphill is far from easy. If the ground is sloping laterally across the motorcycle parking bay, this can also cause problems with motorcycles toppling over, as their side stands and centre stands are designed for level ground only. We see many motorcycle parking bays marked simply with paint on the floor. This is far from helpful for the rider in terms of finding the motorcycle parking bays in a large, busy parking lot. Good quality signage should always be used. This should be vertical and easily seen, preferably from the entrance to the parking lot. If the motorcycle parking bays are positioned well away from the entrance, it may well be worth using directional signage to indicate to riders the shortest and most convenient route to get to the motorcycle parking bays. Good quality signage can also help to prevent car drivers from parking in the motorcycle bays. Bollards can be used to prevent this from happening, but bear in mind the manoeuvring problems that we discussed earlier. Good quality signage at eye level for the car driver is possibly the best way to go for that. From a safety perspective, you need to do all you can to avoid conflict between the motorcycles and other vehicles in the car park. Providing the shortest and most convenient route from the entrance to the car park to the motorcycle parking bays is key here, as well as good sight lines that enable riders to see oncoming vehicles when they are manoeuvring into or out of their parking bays. And of course, be mindful of the most common workplace hazard, which is slips, trips and falls. Do not have loose gravel, soft or uneven terrain where the motorcyclists are parking, as this can place them at considerable risk of slipping, especially when manoeuvring larger and heavier motorcycles. Motorcyclists can ride to work all year round in all weathers. It is therefore wise to provide some form of weather protection for the parked motorcycles in the motorcycle parking bays. Simple canopies or bus stop style shelters can be the solution for providing this kind of protection. Motorcycles are far more vulnerable to theft than cars. Security for motorcycle parking bays should be a key consideration. Motorcycle parking bays should be located in areas covered by CCTV that are well lit and have a good footfall. Placing them close to receptions, gatehouses or manned guarding stations is always advisable. Probably more importantly though, physical security is the key for motorcycle security. Our survey showed that only 46% of motorcycle parking bays in the workplace have physical security devices installed. We have defined three basic types of physical security for motorcycles: ground anchors, rails and captured chain systems. Ground anchors are probably the cheapest and easiest to install. These consist of a hoop or hasp that is fixed to the floor that riders then pass chains through to padlock their motorcycles to. However, these are not well liked by most riders because they are on the ground, get very dirty and grubby over time and are not easy to use. From a security perspective, they require that the chain and padlock is often placed on the ground. This makes them more vulnerable to attack by thieves. Probably the most common and well understood form of physical security for motorcycles is the secure rail. These have the advantage of being dual purpose in many cases. They can act as pedestrian guardrails or even as secure rails for pedal cycles as well as motorcycles. They do not need to be expensive, and very often it can simply be a case of locating motorcycle parking bays next to existing railing. Rails can therefore provide a very cheap and effective solution for security. However, you will have seen in the examples we've shown of ground anchors and secure rails, the riders often leave their padlocks and chains attached to these secure structures. This is the rider trying to tell you something. A captured chain system is by far the most effective physical security system for motorcycle parking bays. In its simplest form, the captured chain system consists of a chain welded to a secure anchor. The rider then simply needs to bring a padlock in order to chain his motorcycle to that anchor. Motorcyclists do not like carrying heavy chains on the back of their motorcycles. This is far from convenient and can in fact be dangerous at times. More sophisticated systems include integrated storage lockers for crash helmets and riding gear, and coin or token operated release for the chains. We strongly advise employers to speak to their local designing out crime officers for extra tips and advice on built environment security. We spoke to Mark Sylvester, a designing out crime officer for West Midlands Police. This is what he had to say.
Nationally, there is a network of designing out crime officers based within police forces up and down the country. Their specialism is around designing out crime within the built environment, but also looking at and assessing parking and other environments such as on-street and reducing crime at every opportunity. From an employer's point of view, we recognise the importance that designing out crime and having safe parking for employees is absolutely critical to a business. Designing out crime officers can offer some advice around safe parking, secure parking, CCTV and lighting. All of this is a service provided by the local forces and can be freely accessed by employers. So if you've got a car park, planning to build a car park, extend a car park, a design out crime officer should be engaged with in order to provide that overview on security to make sure that it reduces at every opportunity the likelihood of crime. And as much as there is a focus on car parking, we also focus on motorcycle and pedal cycle parking as well, because we realise that many businesses have got opportunities for sustainable travel and encouraging people to travel in by whatever means they can. There's also been, since COVID, an increase in the use of motorcycle use, and with congestion charges and other charges to get into our towns and cities, no better way than by motorcycle.
So we've looked at the requirements for the vehicle itself, but what about the needs of the rider? It's a legal requirement to wear a crash helmet to ride a motorcycle. Sensible riders will also be encouraged to wear protective equipment such as armoured jackets, sturdy boots and gloves. These items all need to be stored whilst they're at work. please consider providing good quality storage for crash helmets and riding PPE. If you don't have space for these internally, why not consider the captured chain systems with integrated storage lockers, as we discussed earlier. We hope that this video has given you plenty of food for thought, but we would advise you to take a good look at the Institute of Highway Engineers motorcycle parking guidelines, and also contact your local designing out crime officers for advice and tips on security. If you have any other questions or would like more advice, please also feel free to contact the Motorcycle Action Group.